If you've ever loved someone so much that your own breath seemed to hinge on their happiness, then you will understand my story. This isn't just a tale of betrayal, it's a testament to the quiet strength that lies dormant within us, waiting for the moment we choose to awaken it. It's about the day I learned that the house built with my sacrifices could become my prison, and how I found the key to my own freedom. My name is Eleanor. For 68 years, I've been a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. But for the last 2 years, I've been learning how to be just Eleanor. And let me tell you, it is the most profound, the most terrifying, and the most liberating journey of my life. It all began on a day that was supposed to be a celebration. My son, David, and his wife, Chloe, were hosting their annual summer garden party. Their home, a beautiful modern house with floor-to-ceiling windows and a perfectly manicured lawn, was the envy of their friends. I remember standing at the edge of that lawn, watching them. David, with his easy laugh, clinking glasses with colleagues. Chloe, elegant and poised, directing the caterers with a subtle flick of her wrist. Their 2 children, my grandchildren, Lily and Noah, were chasing fireflies, their laughter like wind chimes in the twilight. I should have been in the thick of it. I should have been the grandmother sneaking them extra dessert, the mother beaming with pride at the man my son had become. But I was on the periphery, a ghost at my own feast. A familiar ache settled in my chest, a hollow feeling that had been growing for months, maybe years. It was the ache of becoming a spectator in the life I had helped create. You see, this wasn't just their house. Every brick, every beam, held a silent story of my sacrifice. When David and Chloe were struggling to get a mortgage after the 2008 financial crash, it was my late husband's life insurance money I had saved for nearly 2 decades for my own rainy day, that formed the down payment. I never told them. I didn't want the gratitude. I wanted their security. I wanted to see the worry lines fade from my son's forehead. I had set up a complex financial trust, a structure so seamless they never questioned their sudden good fortune. The mortgage was in their name, but the payments came from an account they knew nothing about. It was my silent gift, my way of continuing to protect him long after he'd flown the nest. For years, it worked. I was Nana, who visited every Sunday, brought homemade cookies, and spoiled the children. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dynamic shifted. Chloe's polite smiles became tighter. My suggestions about the children's homework or diet were met with a patient, condescending, "We have it under control, Eleanor." David became distant, always glued to his phone, too busy for our long, meandering talks. The garden party was the culmination. I was wearing a simple linen dress I'd saved up for. I'd brought my famous peach cobbler, David's favorite since he was a boy. As I placed it on the overflowing dessert table, Chloe glanced at it and said, "Oh, you shouldn't have, Eleanor. We have a professional pastry chef handling desserts." She didn't say it unkindly. That was the worst part. It was said with a pitying sweetness that made me feel small and outdated. Later, I tried to engage David. "The garden looks beautiful, son," I said. He barely looked up from his phone. "Yeah, the landscapers did a great job." "The landscapers?" I asked, my heart sinking. "I thought you were so proud of the rose bushes we planted together last spring." He sighed, a short, impatient sound. "Mom, that was a hobby. This is professional. You have to trust that Chloe and I know what we're doing." That was the moment the first crack appeared in the foundation of my world. You have to trust that Chloe and I know what we're doing. It was a dismissal. A gentle, firm pushing away. I was no longer a partner in his life. I was a relic from a past he was outgrowing. I left the party early, pleading a headache. The truth was, my heart was the thing that ached. I drove home to my small, quiet apartment, the silence there a stark contrast to the lively noise I had just left. I sat in my armchair, the one my husband, Arthur, had loved, and I cried. I cried for the little boy who used to hold my hand, for the man who now saw me as an obligation, and for the woman I had become, invisible in the very life she had built. The garden party was a turning point. The slow frost that had been creeping into our relationship suddenly crystallized. The invitations for Sunday dinners became less frequent. My phone calls to David went to voicemail more often than not. When I did see him, our conversations were superficial, revolving solely around the children or the weather. Chloe, meanwhile, had begun a subtle campaign of renovation, both of the house and of the family history. The old, comfortable couch I'd helped them pick out was replaced by a minimalist white sofa that looked like it had never been sat on. The family photos on the wall were curated, professional shots of their nuclear family, with the older, slightly faded pictures of Arthur and me relegated to a hallway upstairs. One afternoon, I was over watching Lily and Noah while they had a date night. I was reading Noah a bedtime story from a book I'd given him, the same one I used to read to David. "Grandma," Lily said, peeking into the room. "Mommy says that's an old book and we have new ones now." The words were innocent, but the implication was a needle to my heart. I was being edited out, my traditions replaced by newer, shinier versions. The final straw came with Christmas. Christmas had always been my domain. Even when David was a teenager, rolling his eyes, I insisted on traditions, decorating the tree together on December 1st, baking a specific type of gingerbread cookie, watching the same old, scratched DVD of It's a Wonderful Life. After Arthur passed, these traditions became my anchor, my way of keeping our family's spirit alive. In early December, I called David. "So, when are we doing the tree this year?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. There was a long pause. "Oh, Mom. Actually, Chloe has it all planned. She's hired a stylist to do a winter wonderland theme. It's going to be very coordinated." A stylist? I felt the air leave my lungs. "But, our ornaments. The one you made in kindergarten. The one with the popsicle sticks." "Mom," David said, his voice taking on that patient tone I had come to dread. "Those are sweet, but they don't really fit the aesthetic. We're trying to create a certain look for the holidays." A certain look. My history, our memories, didn't fit the look. On Christmas Eve, I arrived at their house with a bag full of lovingly wrapped, carefully chosen gifts. The house was indeed a winter wonderland. It was pristine, beautiful, and utterly soulless. A white tree stood in the corner, adorned with silver and blue baubles, perfectly spaced. There wasn't a single homemade ornament in sight. It looked like a magazine spread, not a home. I handed Chloe the gifts. She took them with a tight smile. "Eleanor, you know we're trying to minimize clutter. The children have so many toys already." "They're not just toys," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "That one for Lily is a chemistry set. She told me she wanted to be a scientist. And Noah's is a set of good quality paints. He's so talented." "Of course," she said, placing the bag in a closet, out of sight. "We'll see." The evening was a study in quiet agony. I felt like a visitor in a museum, afraid to touch anything. The children were excited, but their joy felt orchestrated. David was distracted, constantly checking his work email. I tried to tell a story about one of Arthur's Christmases, but Chloe smoothly changed the subject to their upcoming ski trip. As I was leaving, coat in hand, David walked me to the door. "Mom," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Look, about future holidays. Chloe and I feel it's important for us to establish our own family traditions. Just the four of us. It's nothing personal." Nothing personal. The words echoed in the silent car all the way home. It was the most personal thing anyone had ever said to me. He was building a new family, and in this new family, there was no room for me. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in the dark, the glow from the small, humble tree in my own apartment the only light. And something in me, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. Not with a loud crack, but with a quiet, definitive click. I was done being a ghost. I was done financing a life from which I was being systematically erased. The days between Christmas and New Year's Eve were a blur of resolution. The grief was still there, a heavy stone in my gut, but it was now accompanied by a cold, clear fury. It wasn't rage against David or Chloe. It was a fury directed at myself for allowing this to happen, for believing that my worth was tied to my usefulness to them. I went to the small lockbox in my closet where I kept all the important documents. There it was, the trust agreement, the bank statements, the payment schedules. For years, this folder had represented my love, my security for my son. Now, it felt like a record of my own foolishness. I made an appointment with my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Gupta. I laid it all out for her. The down payment, the secret payments, the emotional exile. She listened patiently, her expression neutral. When I finished, she leaned forward. Eleanor, legally, you have every right to cease payments. The trust is in your name, for their benefit. You are the benefactor. You can revoke that benefit at any time. The financial liability will then fall solely on them, as the homeowners. And morally? I asked, my voice a whisper. She gave a small, sad smile. Morality is a luxury afforded to those who are treated with basic respect. You have been paying for a seat at a table where you are no longer welcome. There is no moral imperative to continue funding your own dismissal. Her words were the permission I didn't know I needed. The next day, I went to the bank. I sat across from a young, efficient bank manager and instructed him to halt all automatic transfers from my trust to David and Chloe's mortgage account. Effective immediately. May I ask the reason? He inquired. I looked him straight in the eye. The purpose of the trust is no longer being served. The click of his mouse felt like the slamming of a colossal door. A door I had been holding open for a decade. A wave of nausea passed over me, followed by an incredible, buoyant sense of freedom. I had taken back control. I knew the fallout wouldn't be immediate. The bank would take a month or so to process the missed payment and send a notice. I used that time to fortify myself. I started going to a yoga class for seniors. I volunteered at the local library, reading stories to children. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected. I was building a life, my life, brick by painful, beautiful brick. The call came on a cold Tuesday in February. My phone lit up with David's name. I took a deep breath and answered. Mom. His voice was sharp, panicked. No hello. What the hell is going on? We just got a notice from the bank. Our mortgage is in default. They are talking about late fees, about credit damage. I remained silent, letting the panic in his voice hang in the air between us. Mom, are you there? Did you hear me? I heard you, David. Well, do you know anything about this? This has to be a mistake. There's no mistake, I said, my voice calm and steady, belying the storm in my heart. What are you talking about? How can you know that? Because I'm the one who's been paying your mortgage for the last 10 years, David. And I've stopped. The silence on the other end of the line was so profound I could hear my own heartbeat. It was the sound of his entire worldview shattering. What? He finally whispered. What did you say? You hurt me. The down payment was from your father's insurance. The monthly payments came from a trust one set up. You never knew because I never wanted you to. I wanted you to feel proud, self-made. But I can't. I won't pay for a life that has no room for me anymore. He was sputtering now, a mixture of confusion, anger, and disbelief. You had no right. How could you keep this from us? This is our house. Is it? I asked softly. A house is more than a deed, David. It's a home. And a home includes the people who built it, not just with money, but with love, with sacrifice. You and Chloe made it abundantly clear that I am not part of your home. So, I've simply stopped subsidizing my own exclusion. The conversation devolved after that. He called me manipulative. He said I was trying to control him from beyond the grave. He accused me of trying to break up his marriage. I listened to it all, my heart breaking anew with every cruel word, but my resolve never wavered. When he finally hung up, screaming that he never wanted to see me again, I placed the phone down gently. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. I was alone. Truly, completely alone. And for the first time, being alone felt like a choice I had made for myself, not a sentence that had been passed upon me. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. The silence from David was a physical presence in my apartment. I was tormented by doubt. Had I been too harsh? Had I destroyed my relationship with my son and grandchildren forever? The guilt was a hungry beast, gnawing at my insides. Chloe, predictably, went nuclear. She sent me a long, vicious email, detailing every perceived slight I had ever committed, blaming me for their financial stress, and accusing me of emotional blackmail. She said I was a bitter, lonely old woman trying to drag them down with me. I read it once, then deleted it. I refused to let her poison take root in my newfound peace. I knew they were scrambling. They had to take out a second loan, sell Chloe's expensive car, and cancel their lavish vacation plans. A part of me ached for the hardship, but a larger, stronger part knew it was a necessary hardship. They were being forced to stand on their own 2 feet, to truly own the life they were so desperate to curate. Meanwhile, I was flourishing. My life, once so small and defined by my relationship to them, began to expand. I joined a book club and discovered a passion for historical fiction. I started a small garden on my balcony, tending to tomatoes and herbs. I even went on a solo trip to the coast, something I had never dreamed of doing. I ate seafood by myself at a restaurant, watched the sunset over the ocean, and felt not lonely, but profoundly whole. 6 months after the reckoning, there was a knock on my door. It was a soft, hesitant sound, so unlike the confident rap of a delivery person. I opened it to find David standing there. He looked diminished. The arrogant set of his shoulders was gone. His eyes were tired, haunted. "Mom," he said, his voice rough. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked into my living room, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. He noticed the new plants, the stack of books by my chair, the painting I'd bought on my trip. "You've changed things," he observed. "I have," I said simply. We sat in silence for a long time. The air was thick with unsaid words. "I'm sorry," he finally whispered, the words tearing from him. "Mom, I am so sorry." He broke down then, sobbing in a way I hadn't seen since he was a little boy. He told me everything. The pressure he'd been under at work. The way Chloe had slowly isolated him from his past, convincing him that our closeness was unhealthy, and that he needed to prioritize his new family. He admitted that he knew, on some level, that the money had come from me, but he had chosen willful ignorance because it was easier. The weight of his ingratitude was crushing him. "I didn't protect you," he cried. "I let her make you a stranger in your own family. I was a coward." I let him cry. I didn't rush to comfort him or tell him it was okay. Because it wasn't okay. The wound was too deep for a simple bandage of forgiveness. "When you said you didn't belong in our house," he continued, "you were right. But it was my fault. I made you a guest. I forgot that you were the foundation." We talked for hours that day. It was the first real conversation we'd had in years. It was raw, painful, and utterly cathartic. He didn't ask me to restart the payments. He didn't make any demands. He just came back. Our relationship is different now. It's quieter, more honest. There are scars that will never fully fade. I see my grandchildren again, and the love is there, but it's tempered with the knowledge of how fragile these bonds can be. David and Chloe are still together, but their marriage is strained, built now on the reality of their financial situation, not the illusion of effortless wealth. As for me, I have found a peace I never knew was possible. The woman I was, the one who derived her entire identity from being David's mother, is gone. In her place is a woman who knows her own worth, separate from anyone else. I learned that love shouldn't require self-erasure. That setting a boundary is not an act of aggression, but an act of self-respect. They celebrated without me, but I learned to celebrate myself. They built a life that excluded me, so I built a new one that centered on my own joy. The invisible pillar they leaned on finally decided to stand tall on her own.